Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I see many people here. Let's start our event today. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin sayyidina Muhammad ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain amma ba'du. Rabbi sohri sodri wa yassirli amri wahdul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So good morning everyone in Indonesia. Hi.
Morning.
Good evening for our speaker in
How are you?
Hi. So yeah, because of different time, good evening for our speaker in Columbus, Ohio, United States. I believe you are here. So welcome to the international webinar on distance learning in language teaching, trends, challenges, and opportunities. Thank you so much for preparing yourself to join our seminar. So first of all, respectable, the chair lady of English Education Study Program, Ms. Nurul Hasanah Fajaria, MPD. The Honorable all lecturers of the English Education Study Program, Fkip Uia, and the Honorable all participants of this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tia, the moderator of today's seminar, and I'm pleased to see you here and welcome all of you to this seminar. The first session of our seminar is about technology enhanced learning, and our speaker today is Ms. Ferdous Bakhreibah. Hi, Ferdous. Yeah, we just did Maghrib prayer here, right? Like couple minutes ago. So let me introduce her to you all by informing her education and professional background. Ferdous Bakhreibah, she's from Jeddah, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry. She's currently a doctoral degree student. A doctoral student in teaching and learning, majoring language, education, and society. And she obtained her master's degree from Marysville University in gifted education here in United States, and her bachelor degree in childhood studies from King Abdul Aziz University. MashaAllah, a very good and reputable university. And then she is a lecturer of Bisha University in Bisha, Saudi Arabia from 2018 till present date. And she's a vice principal of Riyadh Al Salihin School for 3 years in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And she used to be a kindergarten teacher, Riyadh Al Salihin School for 3 years in Saudi Arabia. Ferdous also is an activist. She is an ambassador of International Peace by International Ambassador Academia, and she has been awarded Student Organization Award from the Professional Development at Marysville University in 2016. So that's her short background. And now I would like to greet her. Good evening, Ms. Ferdous. How are you? You need to unmute yourself.
Yes,
okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for introducing me. Thank you, Tia, and thank you for the university for hosting me in this event. Thank you for the beginning. And
yeah, thank you. We would like to say thank you so much for you being here and have willingness to share with us about your thought and knowledge in technology enhanced learning. And I know you are very passionate about it. And I remember your presentation in our equity and diversity class with Dr. Tyson. It's about teacher and technology. So I believe you have expertise and experience regarding this issue. Well, we are very glad you are here, and I think everybody here is looking forward to this opportunity and can't hardly wait to listen to your presentation.
Thank you.
Before we proceed to the speaker's presentation, I would like to remind the audience to mute the audio while the speaker is presenting. Unless there is an interactive question and answer, you may unmute your audio and please turn on your video. Please turn on your camera, because I believe turning your camera on is a good way to force yourself to pay attention, or at least look like you are. Turning on camera means a sign of attention and concern. So before the presentation begin, let me inform you how the presentation will be going on. First, Ms. Ferdous will be invited, you'll be invited to present the materials, and after that, there will be a question and answer session and followed by this discussion. So now allow me to welcome the speaker, Ms. Ferdous Bakhreibah, to deliver her presentation. Time is yours.
Thank you. So welcome all, and thank you for the lovely introduction, Tia. And she already introduced a couple of my job. Thank you for that. And let's go to the topic directly. I was wondering if we have like a chat. Yes, I think I can see the chat. So I want like 5 minutes or 3 minutes from the audience. What do you know about Bitro principle or the principle of 2080? You can participate in the chat, and I would like to know your idea, or if you heard about this principle before. Can the audience write something in the chat?
Yes, please write some, you can start typing on the chat.
So just a general survey, how many of you know about this principle, the 2080? It's not only related to education, it's a general principle. If you heard about it, or if you're not, or if you heard something similar to this principle. I appreciate your engagement, and I'm excited to know what you know about this principle before we start.
I haven't seen so far. Me too. You know, I have to be honest that this is the first time I read and I heard about that. This is interesting, yeah.
Okay, let's give like a couple of minutes for the audience if they want to participate. We appreciate your income and your idea. And as Tia said, it's always welcome to open your camera. I'm so happy that we have we're allowed to open our camera. In my usual class in Saudi Arabia, we're not allowed to open our camera due to religion reasons. So I miss the introduction. Yes, the connection with the student through Zoom. So you're more than welcome to express your opinion. Okay, so it seemed that
I just Googled it. So
nice, thank you. Thank you, Tia. So let's go and start the presentation and talk about this principle. So there is so many interpretation about this rule in the classroom and outside of the classroom. It wasn't exclusive for education. It was a general rule that talk about how much effort you present and how much result you get. And it can be explained in business measure, in education measure, and so many. I'm only going to talk about my understanding of this this principle through my experience with the student, through my working with the teacher as they teach, and through a couple of courses I've been given to teacher in the field. So how can we use this principle 2080 to change our work in the classroom? So we all know about the picture in the left, and you can understand that the person who speaks seems like a teacher, and the person who's almost sleepy can be, and not always, can be the student. And what the student interesting in the material is only like little part of what they're given, as long as they have like a relationship with this information, or they make sense of this information. We can interpret that to many theory in education, especially like a Bloom, when he talked about the level of education and how the three first part in the bottom, it's always count about how taking the information and give it back. It's always about like the quick feedback, and it doesn't have that relationship with the information. While the three, analyzing and evaluating and creativity, always the level that the student have interact with this information and make sense of this information. So how can we make the student make sense of the information? And we go back to Petro principle. This is only my interpretation and my idea of the rule 2080. So you will not find it anyway. It was an idea that I got it from my experience. So in the left, it's talking about the 20 and 80% of the teacher role. As we all know, teacher is always about preparation before the class. So what I think makes a successful classroom or a successful relationship between teacher and student is the 80% the teacher spend during their home, before the classroom, during preparation of the classroom, what the method they wrote, what is the material, what is the objective, all of this is included in the 80% of the teacher role behind the scene. In front of the scene or in the classroom, it's always just 20% of what they already prepare. It's like what they give in the classroom. So if the teacher notices that they talk more, they do all the work in the classroom, that means that there is something unbalanced during the class, or sometimes it can affect how successful the teaching is in this classroom. My understanding of the 80% from the student role is only they listen to 20%, or what they should do, only listen and follow the instruction of the teacher for 20%. And what they doing with this information, what they've taken off with this information, is going to be that 80% that will stay with them, that they will get involved with them. They make a project, they make a presentation, they create a new tools, they teaching this tool. It has to be 80% effort from the student. They only taking 20% and given 80%. That's what makes the relationship between the information and the student so successful, and the information will stay with them even after or outside of that classroom. So we were going to talk more about ways to help the student to have this connection. Okay, so during last week, I think if you have someone in Saudi Arabia or know someone about Saudi Arabia, or you're interested in politics, we had a total lockdown during the pandemic. We're not allowed to go outside. We have like a restriction hour, and from our Ministry of Education was a government rule that we have all our classes online. So that make our job harder. Always there is like a challenging with the online courses if it is come suddenly, and we were not that much prepared for it. And by the way, my university is a startup university, so we have like an issue with the resource. So usually it's between a technology problem from my side and from my student side. And also like sometimes it's attended, like you can see in this video, I was the only one in the course, which is so hard for me. I was shocked. There's supposed to be almost like 30 students in the course, but because a small technical issue in their city, they couldn't log in the course. So we always have this issue of attended, or sometimes the student comes and they mute themselves and I can't see them. So I will not know if the student is in the class actually or not. So I have to put like a survey after a couple of minutes. I'm asking them, are you listening? Are you involved in? And etc. It was so difficult, so challenging to pull out the attention from the student and make them engagement. So how did I go from this, reading the book during the class and asking for each one to participate, to this, eating while I have my courses? My students do the 80% in the classroom while I'm eating and enjoying my time. So let me tell you the secret. Of course, the lesson plan is the same, making the objective, present the practice, present the example, present the material, and assist the student. The rule is the same, but what is changing is the way you present the information. I was more focused about the practice of this information, what the student can make sense of this information. So I put a couple of projects for them through the semester. They can participate through this project. I don't count attendance. It's not important for me if you come early or in the middle of the class or the end of the class, because I understand they have so much technology difficulty. So the important is you take the object, you engage with the information, and I can give you more credit for the attendance. So it's always about practicing and what they make sense of this information. So first step, I use engaging topic. I use couple of project or couple of trendy topic in the at that time to have a discussion with the student. You can see in the middle of the picture, our Minister of Education, when the pandemic start and the online courses start, he was so stressed on the idea that students have to wear the uniform when they log into their online courses. And it wasn't for like one level, it was for the whole levels and all grades. And there is so much debate about this. And I was wondering, I really resonate with his idea because I know it's so important for the student to have the mental capacity and the physical capacity, and also the mentality to go to this classroom, to connect what's going on with their actual reality, since we don't have the four wall of classroom. So it was so interesting to have like this discussion with the student. I post this this picture and I have them to talk about this. We have a discussion about who's agree and who's not, and of course the reasoning that they back up each back up their each opinion. And I want them to have the chance to express whatever they feel as a teacher, not as a student. Especially my I'm teaching pre-service teacher in early childhood, so they eventually gonna be a teacher after they graduate, or almost the majority gonna be teachers. So it's important to have this opinion. In the first picture in your left, it's talking about the assessment. We can talk sometimes if we have like a differentiation method, or we have a different type of assessment I need to discuss with them. I present this picture, and so I have so many more to pull the student opinion or to make them engaging, at least like a couple of words to express their opinion. And also like there's a video in the one of the picture. It's talk about one of the popular trendy girls at that time. She was talking to I think I'm hurting my echo. Okay, so she was so popular at that time, and everyone know about this girl, especially if she was a local girl, and she was talking to the audience, and we had this discussion about the dialogue when you talk to children. It's so different than adult. How do you interview them? What kind of question? What do you do if you see the expression of the student? So this topic always related to my lesson objective and or lesson goals, but at the same time they express the student opinion. So I'm taking back the 80% of them, or the 80% of their effort to get a result and have a relationship with this material. Okay, so how about technology? So I'm a big believer of technology since I was a teacher. I think technology make everything easier for us and make it so engaging for the student to understand the material and to present the material in fun and more active way to deal with. So what can we use from the technology? I bought a couple of programs. I have tried them. You can try them as well, whether it's online classes or regular classes. This is one of the funnest program you ever see. You can download it through your phone, or you can use it through screen. It's called Kahoot. The program is so easy to use. You can put your own language of it. You can work as a team, and you can see in this picture, they can play player versus player, like 2 team or 2 player or they can play as a team, and the winner will be will have a prize from my side. I always present you like the way our courses in structure is couple of the classes like math concept, reading concept, they have a practical part. So the students have the theory part and they have the practical part. And usually during the practical, teacher forget everything they taught last semester. When they start the semester, even though that I was the teacher before, they forgot. It doesn't come in top of their head. So I have these games to remind them of a couple of rules about lesson plan, about the material, the language in the material, the age appropriate of this material. And we have this discussion, and it's going to be so quickly. As we all know, we're living on snapshot world, like 10 seconds. Either you tell me something interesting or I back out, or like I'm gonna look for another thing interesting. So this game pulled my student always, and I try to put like at least twice, 2 games, or I do it like I practice it twice. Sometimes I make it fun for the student. I'm with my practical exam in this game. So it makes them more willing to and or interesting to go and play with this game. Another thing was so nice using the technology. It's a program or a website called Padlet. I think you heard before that. You can find it at the website or as a program in Android and also in iPhone. This program is so nice to express each opinion, and it's easier for me to calculate how many students participate, what is their participation, or sometimes I can respond to whatever they posted. I have a couple of video I was preparing for before the class. I prepared it for the student. They come inside this program, they express their opinion. Sometimes I use it as assessment tool. I put like something and they can write down the answer. It will be like a wall, electric wall, they can use it. Another fun program which related to the basic, which is PowerPoint. We all know about PowerPoint program. We all have it in our laptops, but it's always about how to use it. So for example, here we have a mathematical concept for the student and they have to teach this. I want them to reach to the level of creating tools or creating material. I don't want them to be only consumer of these materials. And also there is like a couple of things I want them to be, to notice it, like how well it is present our culture, how well the picture is related to the student, the age appropriate, the language that you use, and I'm stressing about the mathematical concept. You can see in the left, one of my students create a story about direction. It's like front, back, right, left. And she put it in a story of one child and her mother going to the store. All the pictures are ready-made. I don't ask them to create their own picture because it make it easier for them. I want them to do it or redo it, or practicing making story, even though they have their own classroom and they have so many tasks to do. So it's easier to take ready-made story, and you can see in the right story, the story that the student create was one child going to a mall, and there is accounting for like the dresses, the clothes, and the stores, and also counting of the money. So there is so many concepts related to mathematics, as counting and as coloring, engaging in this story. And this student, I always give them like as casual to help them to how to what they need to what are their assessment. I'm sorry, what is their assessment idea, or what I'm looking for in the story, and how can we help them? We work on this story back and forth for a couple of weeks until they present. It takes them from being consumer, taking a ready story, to a little bit create their own story. We always pay attention to the girls in the story, her color, her clothes, the mother clothes, and simple thing like this make change for the student. And we always have a discussion about how to use this material in the classroom. So here is back to the rule 2080. Is this working for all students? Does it work with all audience? Of course it's not. Whenever I present this material, I'm using, if I have students from the first year in their college, it will be different than the level of activity I give it to the student, or the type of technology I use with my student in the 4th or 5th year. Also, like, understanding that technology is not available for all the students is so important. Some students come from middle social economic background, so technology is not available for them. And we need to be very realistic that not all the teachers have a technology in their classroom. This is not the reality. Some teacher, like my classroom, I don't have that much of like support regarding technology, like a Wi-Fi and a laptop and etc. So I always pay attention of who's my audience, what is the technical availability with them, what is their level, and of course I need to always return back to my classroom goals, what I need from my student. So whenever we come to the classroom, I'm only presenting 20%, I'm only working 20%, I only work at 15 to 20 minutes in the beginning of the class. Then I have to give like the 80% to the student to make sense of this information and to have this relationship and the connection with the relationship. Technology always make it easier for the student, but it's not always the goal in my classroom. It's always a tool, it's not the goal. These couple of programs, you can take a snapshot of them. They're very useful and have the same idea. You can find more through Pinterest, through Google Map, and it always depends on what is your audience, what type, or what is your level of technology, and what is your comfort.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. We have a couple of time for question if someone want to ask something.
Yes, sure. So thank you, Ferdous, for giving us such informative and interesting presentation. And that's very interesting. The first, I myself, and I believe some of the audience also, first time to heard about pair-to principle. Yeah, because with all the technology offer many convenience, as a teacher, we have to pay attention to that rule. 80% of the results are produced by 20% courses. Yeah, so I would like to open the discussion, question and answer session. So for the first, I would like to invite 3 people, or maybe there are 3 questions from the participants. You may, okay, so here is the questions. The first one, I have one here, I can see. Just a second, yeah. You can type your questions, or you can unmute your audio and you just talk. So the first question comes from Mr. Hanafi Wibowo. Have you designed a hybrid class? If so, what was the subject and how was it designed? Are you ready to
teach it? Yes, yeah, I am. This is very interesting question. Thank you for asking this question. So usually my classroom, I divided between online courses and physical courses, or face-to-face courses. But unfortunately, as I said, my university is a startup, so they don't have that much of technology ready for the student to use. And sometimes, because I'm always supervising as well in the e-learning at the same university, the students' ability to use the technology is not that advanced. So I'm trying to do that, but what happened is always the student more engaging in face-to-face class. But related to your question, what is the topic that I'm using to online courses? I usually put it more about like groups, working groups, and after they work, they present through online courses if we have a hybrid, but we don't have that option. The subject that I use, I usually teach concept of mathematics and concept of science, and sometimes introduction for early childhood. If it is like only lecture courses, it will be easier to have the online courses. Always the practical part of the courses is so difficult because as you know, we need to have this relationship of building a couple of materials, especially for early childhood level. I hope you answer your question.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. And any more questions, please? Well, I have a question actually related to
Welcome.
your previous slide. Yeah, that's about, I think you mentioned something about creating a story with math, right?
Yes.
So what program or application we can use for for the purpose of this learning? You show PowerPoint, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. This is interesting question.
Okay.
So I always have a couple of questions. Like if you see in the program, there is an interesting program, and it's easy to do it. It's called story making or story tell. I need to find this program. I mean, I can send you a copy of this program, but sometimes it's a bit about the level of my student. So my student know how to use PowerPoint. I don't want them to find a program that they spend most of the time figuring out the program icons. You know how hard it is finding the right icon, how to do the picture, how to make the font bigger or smaller, or color the font. These small things throw out the student focus. So I'm trying to use the PowerPoint or like program they're familiar with, so it will be easier for them to make the material instead of learning about the program. So it's depend on how much advanced the student in using technology. There is so many program available, free program. If I use one of these free program, I need to double check if they're like free for limited time or there is a free access for them. I don't want to cause the student to pay from their own budget. I want them to have more relaxing in dealing with this program. So in this type of assessment, I'm using the PowerPoint, but you can use another program if your students are very advanced in using technology. That's a very great question. Thank you, Thea.
Thank you. We have another question here from Pak Muhammad Malik Fajar. What the application that you use for learning process? Maybe you use another application according to PowerPoint, or you use language managing system, or maybe he means like LMS, something like that, such as using website, learning management system.
Using language management. I didn't understand this part. Language management. Is it?
So what application you use for learning instead of PowerPoint, or are you using, you remember in Ohio State, we use Carmen?
Yes, so that's interesting. We use, with my student, we use Blackboard. And usually Blackboard provide couple of program through their application. It's easier than Zoom. Zoom is still new for me. But for our yes, but for our regular student in KG 12K student, they use their own program. It's called Manassa or Madrasati. It's been on the level, and they use a program that's supported by the government, so they can handle that much pressure of attendance. But for the university, usually Blackboard. Yes, yeah.
Yes, Blackboard is very good, and you mentioned before it's very easy, but you know it's expensive. So
Yes,
yes,
it
some
is. Yes.
people they can afford it. That's why, yeah.
Yeah.
But I believe in Indonesia we have something like Blackboard, but the facility is not as complete as Blackboard. So
Yes.
Blackboard
Yes.
is more convenient.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Cost is always a big factor of how advanced we use the technology or what type of technology we use. You're right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, audience, ladies and gentlemen, we still have 2 more minutes. If you have questions, you may unmute or you may write on chat room, please.
So I think Muhammad put a comment, and so we have an idea in our university or so many Saudi university talking about e-learning, which the environment of using electric or technology, and we also have how to use technology in education. I think it's always returned to, is it a goal or is it a tool? I prefer to use it as a tool. I don't want to put it only for a goal that I use technology. I want to make sense of how to use. So the difference is using technology as a tool. We will call it, I think, technology in education more than education in technology. This is my email address. You're more than welcome. This is my personal.
Teacher to understand pair-to principle in order to make sure student absorbs more what they learn in classroom and engaging in classroom activity. And as you mentioned before, that lesson plan is a must. It plays an important role, but the difference is how the teacher to present the material and making sense of the information. And I also agree that the engaging topics can encourage students in learning, such as using pictures, discussion, and using some game application, which I believe also all the audience here are familiar with. And probably you may share to us also what program that you have used in your classroom. And yeah, I think the last point is that the rule of pair-to principle must be adjusted with the age-appropriate, challenging level, technology availability, and goals and objectives. So thank you, Ferdous, for the informative and interesting presentation, and all our participants for the very active participation. Finally, we give the applause for the speaker. And for all of you, thank you. Thank you so much again. And
thank you for having me.
We'll jump up. Yes, thanks for being here. And we will jump to the next session with Timothy Barczak. I believe Tim is here. And let me see.
Hi, Tia.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
Doing well. How are you? It's good to see you again.
I'm good. I'm here already. So yeah, nice to see you. So my friend Chusnul Chotimah will be the moderator for your session. So I will hand over to her now.
Of online education. Hello, Mr. Timothy Barczak. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you.
You're good.
Mr. Timothy Barczak, how should I call you, sir? Mr. Timothy or Mr. Barczak?
Tim is just fine, or Mr. Barczak, whichever you are most comfortable with. Yeah.
Tim. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I will read Tim's personal profile. He is one of doctoral student at the Ohio State, researching the philosophy and history of education. His educational backgrounds was the Ohio State University Philosophy and History of Education, expected graduation May 2023. Second, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, Master of Business Administration, MBA, concentration Business Analytics in 2019. Third, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, Bachelor of Economic Finance Investment in 2015. And his experience are: first, doctoral fellow at The Ohio State University in 2019 to present. Second, data scientist at Public Education Foundation in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 2018 to 2019. Third, resident assistant and senior resident assistant at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga in 2013 to 2015. Fourth, data analyst at the Johnson Group in 2015 to 2018. Okay, then Mr. Tim will be invited to present the material. After that, there will be question and answer session and followed by conclusion. Now, allow me to welcome the speaker, Mr. Timothy Barczak, MBA, to deliver his presentation. Tim, time is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that fantastic introduction. Real quick, how am I on time? What kind of time am I looking at so I can make sure I leave time for questions?
It's about 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
Yes.
All right, perfect, wonderful. Well, good morning, everyone. To all there, it's actually about 10 o'clock where I'm here, so this I think marks the latest presentation that I've ever given. But I'm happy to be up with you all late here, and thank you all for getting up and joining in the morning over there. So when Tia gave me some of the themes for this conference, I looked over them and actually saw that there was a topic that aligned with some of the research that I had been doing on online education and democracy. So I wanted to go over some of the things I'm thinking about for that, as well as field any questions that you all have for me there. So I'll go ahead and share my screen with you all here and start the presentation. All right, let me back it up here. All right, so as was said, the topic of my presentation today is benefits and worries of online education. I wanted to give a quick introduction, but the introduction that was given was phenomenal, so I won't spend too much time on this, but I do have a background in economics and data analysis. So I entered into education and thinking about education kind of with that background in mind, and really started asking questions about how we educate through technology and what technology does for our education, but also thinking about some of the things that we should be concerned, we should concern ourselves with in terms of what technology does to us as a society. So my concerns within education come from a standpoint of knowledge creation. So how do we kind of create knowledge with each other and with kind of alone without each other, perhaps? What are the kind of economic and political influences of education? And then I'm also really concerned with civic friendship and collaboration, how we work with one another as we educate, and then also in mind. So the first orientation that I kind of approach it with is this orientation of a student to flourishing. So this concept of flourishing is somewhat ambiguous within the literature, but it kind of comes down to this notion of students doing well within the world after they graduate. And John Dewey, who is a kind of in the United States, perhaps the most famous philosopher of education, has a good quote that I think sums this up. He says, "Nothing is more tragic than failure to discover one true business in life, or to find that one has drifted or been forced by circumstance into an uncongenial calling. So within this, John Dewey's kind of saying that, it's our duty as educators to help students kind of come into their own in their life, find what they want to do in life, find their joy in life, and flourish within that. And kind of a subset again of that, of this flourishing, is preparing students to interact with the world. So we can kind of think of this in a way where schools are preparing students to go out into the world. So we graduate when we're in our late teen years from high school or from secondary school. And then we enter into the world there. And I think Hannah Arendt, a prominent philosopher of the 20th century, has a really good quote here. She says, "Normally the child is first introduced to the world in school. Now, school is by no means the world and must not pretend to be. It is rather the institution we interpose between the private domain of home and the world in order to make the transition from the family to the world possible at all." So within this, Hannah Arendt is, saying that this school is this transitionary period for the student. And these are kind of the two things I try to keep in mind when I'm especially doing my philosophy of education and thinking about school and education more broadly. This orientation towards flourishing, and this notion that the school is this intermediary institution that we have within our life. So within that, I kind of thinking through some of the things that teachers have to do, and especially in online, I've tried to boil down thinking about online education and what an educator might need to do to three things that kind of point towards that area. And I have a cat jumping on my desk. Sorry about that. It's kind of three things that educators must do to distinguish them, to be good educators. So the first is to distinguish themselves as conveyors of valid knowledge. So this qualifier, this valid knowledge piece, becomes really important when thinking about online education. I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but teachers don't automatically always have a role in the classroom that is one that is a position that conveys all the knowledge within the classroom. So they have to, in some sense, prove that they have this role that is to convey knowledge to others. They have to prove that they are good in conveying information from themselves to the students. And there's a few ways that teachers really need to think about this in terms of building epistemic trust with their students. The second is teachers need to provide a proper space for communication to take place within three major parties. So first is the student and the teachers. So there is a communication that goes back and forth of a teacher to a student, and that needs to be a space for communication, for open communication, for students to be able to be trusting of the teacher, and also for the teacher to be trusting of the students. The second is students and other students. So we want to build an atmosphere. We want to build an atmosphere for students to feel like they have a chance with one another to communicate their concerns with the world, to communicate and build knowledge within each other. So knowledge isn't only created from the teacher to the students, but also is transferred from student to student. And then the last, again, thinking back to Hannah Arendt's quote, is this interaction of students and the world. So we want to have a place for students to take the knowledge that they learn in schools and apply it to the world, go out and into their community, into their civic life, and participate as good citizens within the world. And then the last thing that educators must do is they must facilitate knowledge creation and absorption in the classroom. So this is kind of the main goal of education, is this knowledge transfer in some sense. So they need to create that space that is a safe space for students, a good space for learning, and if they can't create that space, they're gonna have a hard time within the classroom of just teaching in general and transferring that knowledge. So these are kind of three of the roles of an educator that I think play a really important role in how online education works. Of course, they're not all the roles that an educator takes. There's many that educators take on, but these are three that I think are going to play a pivotal role in how online education works and how well it's going to function. So within these three roles, I've kind of tried to think through some benefits and some concerns that we have for online education. And as I go through these, you'll see that it's kind of the same theme on both sides of the benefit and the concern. So the first benefit of online education, and I think the most prominent one, is access to information. Before we could have access to the internet, information was only in libraries. You had to go to a brick and mortar school building to get information. You had to do a lot of work to get access to information. That kept a lot of groups out of education and out of the epistemic environment. But the internet and online education has really opened up access to information, whether that is through websites like Wikipedia, or there's a great Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy that I use all the time. That without education right now is YouTube, and being able to go on YouTube and access information really quickly about a lot of different things. But the concern on the other side of this is kind of a deluge of information, just a bunch of information coming at us all at once. And the worry here is, and we've kind of seen this, especially within, I'm most familiar with the context within the United States, in social media, there's kind of this deluge of information, and it's kind of hard to parse out for a lot of people what is good information and what is bad information. And part of that is because it's just coming at us so fast. So the concern here is how do we prepare students to be in an online environment, be in an online educational environment, and also know what information is the right information, for perhaps lack of a better term. The next point is that we have wider bounds of the classroom environment. Again, kind of going back to this access to information, we don't have to be in a school building to be in a classroom anymore. This is a perfect example. I'm sitting in my house, in my office in Dayton, Ohio, within the United States. You all are in Indonesia. I presume most of you all are there, perhaps other parts of the country as well. And this classroom is now spanned across the world, and that we wouldn't have the ability to have this educational environment if it wasn't for online. But on the flip side of that, there is kind of this ambiguous definition of the classroom. As an educator, especially in this past year, with all the concerns of COVID-19, one of the things I've talked to colleagues about is how do we keep students engaged in a classroom environment when we don't really have any controls over what the students are doing, perhaps. So when you're in a classroom, you can kind of grab attention real quick. There's a lot of things you can do, but online, you're competing for attention in a lot of ways. It's quite easy to hop on Facebook, to scroll through news websites, and this is because of this kind of ambiguous definition of where the classroom is. The third thing is ease of online interaction among different groups. Again, this is a perfect example. We would not perhaps be talking with each other if it wasn't for this online portal. We are able to connect different groups from across the world. We're able to connect different groups within our same society. Perhaps ones that have been separated either by legal kind of societal power mechanisms, these groups can connect better within an online space. But on the flip side of that, again, we have lack of substantive opportunities for students to interact. So when students are online, sometimes they're not going to have a chance to interact with their classmates sitting next to them, perhaps. It's easier to turn to your classmate and have a conversation within a classroom than it is to type something out. You may not be as inclined to seek out someone new. And this is a real big concern as well when we think about different groups coming together within a classroom. So if it's online, we can't bring perhaps two parties together to have substantive conversation. We're not building that space for that communication to take place. Of course, there's ways to do this, but this is kind of a concern that we need to keep in the back of our mind as we structure our online education. The last points are having to do with kind of opportunities for marginalized groups. And with online education, we have these improved opportunities for marginalized groups because we're not restricting education to one avenue. So, for instance, if there is someone who is poor and has to work a few jobs, can only go to night school, online education has opened up an opportunity for them to do so, especially if they have to take care of multiple children, especially if they have duties to take care of family members. These opportunities to be educated for marginalized groups are opened up within online education. And then lastly, this also does place higher demands on poorer communities, especially within communities. Again, I'm familiar with the context of the United States, within the rural areas where people sometimes don't have access to internet. So online education doesn't quite do them good. And if we move to a solely online education model, which isn't quite something that I think will happen, but is perhaps a possibility, these communities will lose access to information that online education imbues. So these are just some things that I've been beginning to kind of think through as I'm kind of making an attempt to think through things that have happened within, especially this past year with COVID and whatnot, and thinking about how online education affects especially democratic institutions and schools more generally. And I think I've left about 8 minutes for questions, if I'm right there. So a general takeaway that I wanted to put here before we go into questions is while online education is largely a good thing for expanding education to especially marginalized communities, we still need to be thoughtful of the burdens that come along with it, or we're gonna miss out on many opportunities there. Yeah. Thank you. So question, I see some questions in the chat. Should I go ahead and go through those? Is that a good way to approach this?
Okay.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much, Tim, for giving us such informative and interesting presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now come to the question and answer session. I will read the first question from the chat room. And the first question comes from Mem Nurul Fajaria. Her question is related the purpose of education. Does education ensure us to earn more money than uneducated one?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this question. I think this is a really interesting question because in some senses I'm the economic outcome. I'm in kind of my personal orientation inclined to say that education can only do so much. So it's kind of what you do with that education after you've earned it. So even if you've got an education that is perhaps a degree or so higher than someone else, if that other person kind of puts their nose to the grindstone more than we do, then we can't. That more money qualifier is an interesting one, but there's some really interesting research that tracks back to the early 1900s, and actually, Tia, you might remember this from the class we took last spring, coming from Weber, which talks about kind of the way education restricts our access to different places in society. So just from that restricting, or opens up rather. So the more education we have, the more open kind of different levels in a stratified society is to us. So to the extent that is linked to money, then yeah. But this is a really interesting question, and I'm never quite sure how to answer it in terms of when we talk about money and education. So thank you for that question. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. And the second question from Mr. Hanafi. His question: what are the challenges of distance learning in your country, Mr.?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of the ones that I listed, I think for me are the ones that pop up the most. One of the most interesting challenges that I think was unexpected for me, not for me personally, but for those that I spoke to or those that I taught, were the challenges that came with being in a job and being in school at once. So I had students in classes, in the classes that I taught, that had to take up more responsibility of working over the course of this last year because of the pandemic. Either their parents lost their jobs that they had been in, or they were just living at home, and when they're at home, they have to pay for more things than when they're at university. So they had a larger workload. So this kind of made it hard for them to be in a distance learning environment, because that learning environment actually added more responsibilities onto them. I mean, I think there's also really concerns for mental health that are becoming more and more prevalent within the United States. And I think this is generally a good thing, being concerned for mental health. But a lot of students were experiencing some mental health difficulties with a sudden shift to distance learning within the United States, because this is something that in the United States isn't quite a thing that we've been doing for years. Again, I'm unfamiliar with international contexts, but that sudden shift from being all in person to being all online and distance learning seemed to create some heightened mental health issues for some students. Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Okay, and then the third question comes from Eri. The question is, online interaction is depend on internet connection. I guess some disturbing may happen in the middle of teaching learning processor.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is a perfect example of kind of what I was saying in one of the concerns that I had about rural students with education. That if they don't have internet access, they're not in the classroom. They can't get into a classroom. I've even had times where you're disturbing things may happen. I dropped out of a class completely that I was teaching 2 or 3 times over the past year. So I'd be in the middle of a sentence and I'd just drop out of the classroom, and I'd have kind of this worry that when I got back in 5 minutes later, that my internet would or that my whole class would be gone. Luckily they weren't, but yeah, this is certainly kind of this worry that we dependent on technology in this way. then absolutely, yeah, disturbing things may certainly happen.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And this is the last question. Can you suggest what we should do for understanding the material well, while when few of us have habit face to face? Because sometimes I feel audio in internet or using social media is already have filter sound. Do you have any suggestion in your mind? Yeah, from Siti Hajar.
Yeah, thanks for this question. Certainly a question. I mean, I agree with you. It is, you know, difficult to make that transition from face to face to online learning. I think one of the suggestion that I have is I like to use closed captions whenever I can, which may or may not be an option for you. But another thing that we're encouraged to do, especially in philosophy, is read everything twice. So perhaps, if possible, listen to everything twice. I always find when I read things twice that I catch things that I don't always catch the first time. Another trick that I've used sometimes on YouTube, if I'm watching kind of a lecture on YouTube or video, and I'm really trying to catch something, I'll slow the video down. So they have the option to kind of slow it down to half to kind of 3/4 or half speed. I go to 3/4. Especially when I'm taking notes sometimes, and that really helps me. But you know, I don't really have any good suggestions other than that. But I mean that transition from face to face to internet certainly is difficult. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for your answer, sir. Due to the time of limitation, I do apologize that we can answer all of the question. Thank you, Mr. Timothy Barczak, MBA, for sharing your knowledge and experience in today's seminar. And countless thanks for all participants for your attention. But before we end this event, I want to read the conclusion that the benefit of online education are access to information, whether born of the classroom environment, is of online interaction among different groups, and improve opportunities for marginalized group. And then the concern of online education, the use of information, ambiguous definition of the classroom, lack of substantive opportunities for students to interact, and high demand for poor communities. Before we end this event, let's take a picture together. Operator, are you ready?
Yes, Miss. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you ready, everyone? Smile. 1, 2,
wait, Miss.
3. No. Cheers.
No, Miss. Wait. Okay.
Okay. You lang.
Wait,
yeah.
wait.
Okay, sorry.
It's not it.
Okay, are you ready? Yeah.
Okay, everyone, please turn on the camera.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, just one more. One more. I think. 1, 2, 3. Done.
You know? Okay, yeah.
Done.
And dear participant, for your information, this webinar is the opening session of the 6th Students Research Expo 2020. We would like to invite you to join our next event at 10 a.m. in this morning. Thank you very much, everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, team. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, the speaker.